Tibetan Rhodiola, which is also called Rhodiola sacra, is widely regarded as one of the greatest herbal adaptogens that exists, but it's very important not to confuse it with Rhodiola rosea, which is, to be honest, a much more famous form of rhodiola. It's much more common, much more widespread, and it's pretty much what people are referring to when they're talking about rhodiola. Now, obviously, these two species of this plant, they do share some similar attributes, but in all honesty, they probably have more differences than similarities. The first big difference would be that Rhodiola sacra is a lot more effective. I mean, a lot of people use Rhodiola rosea as an antidepressant, and it's said to be many times more powerful than St. John's wort as a herbal antidepressant, which is actually the most famous, the most popular herbal antidepressant that there is. But Rhodiola rosea is said to be many times more powerful as an antidepressant than St. John's wort, and Rhodiola sacra is many times more effective than Rhodiola rosea. So that would be the first major difference, is that Tibetan rhodiola is just much more effective as a herbal medicine. The second big difference would be that Rhodiola rosea is loaded with a constituent, biologically active constituent called rosavins. And this is really believed to be the reason why Rhodiola rosea behaves in the way it does, why it has these medicinal benefits that it has. And Tibetan rhodiola, or Rhodiola sacra, doesn't even have any rosavins at all. The main active constituent that's been analysed in Tibetan rhodiola are salidrosides. It also has many other constituents in it. It has plant sterols, flavonoids, volatile oils. It has, a variety of different antioxidants and all of these things. But the point is really that analysing plants, herbs and foods and things like that, analysing them in this way by breaking them down to their nutrient profile and assessing which are the active nutrients in it, this is just one way of perceiving the medicinal attributes of a plant, and it's by no means an exhaustive way of doing it, nor often an accurate way. Because the chemical analysis that we've come to rely so heavily upon in the West as a way of verifying the potency and the efficacy of natural substances, it's actually pretty limited, and it can be really short-sighted, because often it's based upon the presence of just one or maybe two main active constituents. And, in reality, plant medicines are incredibly complex, and often for these main biologically active constituents to work, it requires the presence of sometimes thousands of other trace nutrients and trace compounds that can be so minute in their amount that they're barely noticeable. But if you remove that part of the plant, then these kind of main nutrients don't actually work the same way anymore. They don't behave in the same way. So by looking at plants in this way and saying, it's the rosavins in Rhodiola rosea that make it work, and so we're going to synthesize this substance, and we're going to increase rosavins, and that will increase the medicinal benefits. This is a very reductionistic, very limited way of perceiving the nature of a plant, how it works, and how it imparts medicine to us. But obviously I recognize the importance of standardization in the herbal medicine industry, but I think it can be something of a misleading standard to adhere to, because there's so many other dimensions to natural medicines that are not fully understood in the West, like the energetic nature of a plant, or how that plant might behave in relation to our own internal energetic nature. Ron Teagarden from Dragon Herbs said that Tibetan Rhodiola was his all-time favorite herb, that he considers to be more precious than aged wild ginseng and reishi mushroom. Now, Tibetan Rhodiola, it is impossible to cultivate, the wild variety is all that there is, and it can take many, many decades for Tibetan Rhodiola to actually mature and increase in potency. So really, for this reason, it's never going to be a widely available commercial product. A reference that tends to come up a fair bit is the Shennong Ben Cao, the vast herbal pharmacopoeia that was assembled by the legendary Shennong about a couple of thousand years ago. And in that herbal text, Shennong wrote about Tibetan Rhodiola as being a profoundly superior plant that increases lifespan and expands wisdom. Now, Tibetan Rhodiola's status is pretty mythical because of its rarity and its sheer immensity as a tonic. The botanical name, even, Rhodiola sacra, clearly illustrates how for thousands of years the Tibetan people have revered this herb to be a truly sacred plant. And because it's so rare, it's remained an exceedingly precious substance right up to the present day. Now, the spiritual treasure of this herb is also said to be visibly evident when its aerial parts turn red every autumn, because it's said to resemble a gathering of Tibetan monks and nuns in meditation. The Tibetan Plateau is the roof of the world, where conditions are so harsh. It's sub-zero temperatures, ridiculously dry. The altitude is so high that the air is very, very thin with minimal oxygen in it. I mean, it's one of the purest environments on Earth, but it's also one of the most hostile. So for a plant to become established and carve out its niche in an environment like this requires the maximum of, resilience and adaptability. And I think for a plant to thrive in these circumstances really speaks volumes about the powerful spirit of Tibetan Rhodiola. It's been used for thousands of years by mountain yogis and hermits and meditation masters, and supported them in developing mastery over the body and mind, despite the extremely hostile and challenging living environment. And it's kind of funny, it's poetic really, that at such a high altitude where the air is so thin and oxygen is, a very scarce resource compared to lower elevations, it's poetic in the sense that one very prominent action of Tibetan Rhodiola is to massively increase our ability to absorb and utilize oxygen and circulate that throughout the body. So Tibetan Rhodiola really tonifies the lungs and improves respiratory function. So, on top of that, it's also an amazing herb for chronic respiratory conditions like asthma. And as you might expect from an adaptogen of this caliber, it offers outstanding support for both chronic, long-term stress, plus acute trauma that we might experience, So it has this kind of bi-directional effect on the nervous system. It can stimulate it into action when it's needed, or it can kind of lower neurological activity or dampen the activity of the nervous system if that's what we need. So, it really is working with our personal individual situation. So, like a lot of the great adaptogens, it does possess this intelligence that, it recognizes the uniqueness within each of us and works with that directly. And that kind of dual directional activity, it's not exclusive to the nervous system, Tibetan Rhodiola imparts this same kind of behavior on the immune system. It can, again, stimulate immune function when needed or decrease it when needed. It has the same sort of effect on hormonal activity, so it can actually restore some sense of balance and equilibrium to the endocrine system as well. A big part of why this plant has been so historically regarded as so sacred is because of the effect that it has on the mind and how it can support meditation and spiritual practice. And it's been known for a very long time to be a very powerful heart medicine that not only protects the heart physically, but can also open the energetic heart, open the spiritual heart. Obviously, the heart in many Eastern spiritual traditions is regarded as the seat of our consciousness, where we perceive and feel from, and how we connect with the world around us. So Tibetan Rhodiola has been known for a long time to support a very heart-centered perception, and the effects that it can have on the mind, obviously, are very relative to its effect on the brain. So this powerful oxygen absorption and utilization function that it has has been shown to actually increase oxygen delivery to the brain by up to 200% within just moments of consuming it. So, you can see how this is going to support a greater degree of mental clarity and a greater degree of focus and concentration. And from that perspective, it also works to support both short and long-term memory, and it can really provide us with a much greater degree of mental stamina and avoid the kind of fatigue that comes with placing our attention on one thing for extended periods of time. Obviously, all of these qualities are very important during things like meditation, which is a large part of the reason why this plant has been so deeply revered for so long in its native lands. But it can seriously enhance our physical endurance as well, which has also been an invaluable support in practicing advanced yogic exercises and sitting in meditation posture for hours on end. So from this perspective, Tibetan Rhodiola is also a very good substance for enhancing athletic performance or really any kind of hard physical work, because it can energize us, it can provide focused concentration, but at the same time it can also support recovery and restoring balance once those physical activities are over. And it's also an incredibly nutritious substance, which is something that would have again been very, very valuable for yogis and monks and mountain hermits throughout Tibet's history, because there was often very little to eat, and in such a demanding environment, staying nourished is imperative for survival. So Tibetan Rhodiola has over 30 different trace minerals. It has 18 different amino acids. It's absolutely loaded with antioxidants. And, throughout history, some of these antioxidants would have offered a lot of help to protect Tibetan people from the piercing UV rays that are so much stronger at that elevation than anywhere else in the world. Rhodiola sacra has also shown pronounced antiviral properties, anti-carcinogenic properties, it's antimicrobial, and it's also radioprotective in the sense that it's going to protect the integrity of our cells when they're exposed to harmful radiation. So, this would also make it a very good adjunct therapy when people are, undergoing treatments like chemotherapy. Tibetan Rhodiola is something that really cannot be imitated through cultivation. The wildness of this plant is really what makes it so special, and what has earned it the reputation of being such a profound spiritual catalyst and health-promoting agent for thousands of years in one of the most unforgiving environments on this planet.